Yeah, it'll be fun. I keep forgetting about it. It pops up on my calendar. Like, oh yeah, I gotta leave this week. Yeah, it's just like these past 3 weeks.
Particularly on issues that
It's been, I mean, it's fun.
yeah, but it's tiring.
Yeah. My time on a plane is, so this is my last big trip.
Hey, want to
I was excited. Yeah, you good. Do you know is there another?
And sometimes
Whenever that's
it's time for cookies.
Okay.
I think they're too small, right?
Put yours down.
No, Mickey, no. That seat I think was to the max. I wish I had some lunch there. 1.5 was quite good to Well, no problem at all. No, I think it's time.
Yeah. Too funny. Good to see you.
Call this February 4th, Laramie County Community College Board of Trustees meeting to order. With that, first item I'd like to take a look at are the minutes. And
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the January 9th meeting as well as the board retreat, the 21st.
second.
I'll second.
Comments?
Any
Mr. Chair?
corrections? Yes.
No corrections, but if you've had the chance to review the January 9 retreat minutes, I am just impressed with the way our recording secretary was able to capture the essence of the presentations and also the points of our discussion. And I would say to Dr. Schaefer, we have a list of things that we're going to be doing in the future relative to our dinner meetings so that we're up to speed on various things that we weren't able to complete. So I want to commend Vicky for your work. You did a marvelous job. That I don't know how many pages. I think there were 16 pages. I mean, it was huge. So, and the delay with the January 21 minutes was understandable.
Appreciate those comments, Trustee Erickson. I'd also like to point out that if you think of the minutes, one also has to consider the amount of effort and time that was taken by those folks on Dr. Schaefer's part and his cabinet part and other folks, including, as I said before, with Tara, in preparation and in a pursuit of the information during that meeting. So publicly, again, I would like to say thanks for the effort that was provided, and it will help us be better trustees as we move forward. And I'm going to recommend that all of us as trustees review those minutes a couple of times. And it's not an assignment. I'm not an old faculty member making an assignment for you, but I would recommend that we review those and think about some of the aspects that are in those minutes, because I think it does kind of help us refresh some of the discussions that we had and some of the issues that we're looking at in terms of trying to deal with. So with that said, I have one other thing that's in the, I believe the not the retreat, but the 29th minutes, or not 29th, 21st minutes. And that is with regards, the question came up and was rightfully asked by the president of the Faculty Senate. Leah is the president of that group. And I think Megan was also at that point. There was a question for WA, and it was with regards to the letter that the board had sent out referencing our faculty meeting that we had. And in that, what we tried to say and capture in that was clarification that we felt the issue, or at least one of those issues, should have come through the normal process. And because some folks chose to do it a little differently, it came a different pattern. So we were simply saying we'd like to see that come through the process where it moves to the normal supervisor role, which in this case would have been, I think, to Dr. Schaefer. And I really do appreciate that both WA Megan's group for LCCEA and for the, I said WA, and I apologize, that was wrong, LCCEA. Been messing at the state level back and forth here. But LCCEA and Faculty Senate, I think, are doing a very good job in meeting with Joe, and I would hope that they would be able to take and continue that opportunity. I see no reason why not. And speaking with Dr. Schaefer, I'm sure that'll take place. And it's also not to be construed in that letter in any way that we as board members, I think we've all agreed and said many times that we definitely will listen, but we just want to pursue the appropriate approach to this. Is there anything any other board member or Dr. Schaefer would wish to add to those comments? Okay, I know that was a little broad in terms of the minutes, but I think it kind of clarifies that statement in there. With that being said, any other discussion on the minutes?
You got something in the minutes to reflect that comment?
Yes, I think it would be appropriate. Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes? Question, all those in favor of the minutes as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda is Dr. Schaefer's report. We look forward to hearing from you on this cold evening. Warm us up, Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I will do my best. You won't get any smoky, soulful lyrics out of me, I don't think, tonight. So we'll do my best. Just a few things. I want to give a brief legislative update, and I believe a couple of the trustees will probably want to piggyback on that to talk about some legislation as well. But before I do that, just a couple of good news points that I think are worth sharing. So many of you know that many of you know of the Hathaway scholarship program. In fact, I know Trustee Barker is very familiar with the Hathaway scholarship program. The Hathaway program is often recognized and known for its merit-based component. It's tied to a success curriculum at a different level within the high schools, and students who complete that at a certain threshold, score a certain place on an ACT, receive a scholarship to go on to higher education in Wyoming. A lot of folks aren't aware of the need-based component that's tied to Hathaway. There is a small component of it that can be awarded for need, but there are some specific parameters that you need to go through to access that need. One of those is filling out of FAFSA. And so our financial aid office under Julie Wilson's leadership has been using sort of the carrot approach to students, especially Hathaway students, to see about accessing that Hathaway need-based component by some simple positive messaging saying, did you know if you file a FAFSA, you may actually increase your Hathaway scholarships? I think I've gotten that pretty close, Judy, but if I get a little far off, you can correct that. Long story short, through their basically messaging campaign, not only have we increased FAFSA filings significantly at this campus, but we've actually increased the amount of need-based Hathaway aid that's come to our students from $17,000 to $48,000. $13,000 to $48,000.
this year, at half the year, we were already at 27,000.
Yeah, so just those simple practices to encourage students to file the FAFSA and do that work have actually put a whole lot more need-based aid. What's interesting about that is this is aid that many of our students have never accessed, and by virtue of their FAFSA, we've identified they actually have unmet need. And there's been money on the table that we're now finally finding their way to students. And I just think that that's really something we're celebrating.
This is in addition to any Pell they might have found out they're eligible. Very significant support.
So good work down there, and really good for our students. The other one is exciting. You've heard us talk about the work we're doing in redesigning the mathematics curriculum, specifically what we're calling the Math Pathways Project. You've heard Dean McIntyre talk some about that, as well as Kathy Hathaway from the School of Math and Sciences. The Math Pathways Project is really a redesign that's based on the Carnegie Foundation's work in math pathways, specifically in Quantway and Statway. And our folks didn't stop there. And in fact, they've actually created a pretty robust sequence of different math pathways they call STEMway, Quantway, Statway, Algebra Way. Really have.
Is that Algebra Way the one with the letters?
It's the way you will never get me to go. Well, so recently they were down at the Carnegie Work Group, and this would be the trip that was accidentally charged out to the trustees budget that your treasurer caught us. And so, well, we wanted you to pay for that. We'll find it to go the right way. But long story short, when they were doing updates and our team talking about this, the Carnegie folks said, wow, this is creative and innovative, so much so that they said, we want to grab our hands to that and actually disseminate it across the Carnegie Improvement Network. And so little LCCC, in a large improvement project associated with the Carnegie Foundation, really rose to the top, and people said, we like what's happening there, and let's see if we can distribute that. We've also been recognized and asked to present at the UW Math colloquium together about the specific work that they're doing. And so those are just two examples of really some pretty neat work that's happening here at the college, and some great progress by our employees. So I thought I'd share those. They're kind of fun. Now to more fun, maybe of a different type, the legislature. We are all enjoying that. I just thought I'd give you a quick update on some actions of the legislature that pertain to the priorities of the Wyoming community colleges. The first one is the priority that we were pursuing to actually secure $25 million for endowment challenge matching funds, or gift funds. To date, this is my understanding of where we sit with that. The Joint Appropriations Committee did go through and add $20 million for endowment challenge matching funds, but earmark them for an appropriation next year. So when the budget session starts up, they won't be available, I think, until FY17. They're using planned, unanticipated, or what they call unprofiled capital gains on the state's portfolio to fund some projects in the supplemental budget and some things in the next year. So they put that into this third bucket for next year. So the good news is, and thank you to the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Tony Ross, he really pushed that to get that in there. And so the good news, it's in there. It's in there next year, not this year, which is where we want it. There were some interesting changes, though, that we're still trying to unravel. When the motion to add that in was made, I believe it was made by Representative Stubson from Casper, they made it contingent that it only went to STEM or career and tech ed based programs. And that left a lot of us scratching our heads. And I still am not sure how that language specifically got in there, but we're working on that, and we'll have to unwind that specifically. So there is a recognition that those funds would be useful. I think there's support for that. I think they're worried about the level of spending in the supplemental budget, so they'd like to put that off until the budget session. But there's still some opportunity to encourage them to perhaps consider it in this session. So that's one. The other one, which is our number one priority, is House Bill 118, which is the recalibration or the changes to the community college funding model this was the legislation that would essentially change the way the commission prepares its budget request to the legislature. Right now, they prepare a standard budget request for a block grant of state aid to the community colleges, plus this enrollment growth exception request. Most of you know that exception budget requests are one-time only requests that are brought forward, and you have to make that pitch to the legislature to fund those things. Every year we bring one requesting funding for enrollment that exists at the community colleges now as compared to what enrollment was in 2004, 2005. It's a frustrating process. Doesn't make sense to a lot of people. It is to use President Paul Young from the Northern Wyoming Community College District's term, it is a ping pong ball of funding for us that we try to follow from year to year and biennia to biennia. So we're really trying to make some good headway. That bill flew through the House Education Committee on a unanimous vote, and then was heard by the House Appropriations Committee yesterday morning. And it did come out of there on a unanimous vote. They can move it as shall pass or shall not pass when it comes out of there. It did come out of there as a shall pass, but there were a long conversation, as the chairman would know, who sat there about the implications of this legislation. I think the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee made some very generous interpretations of what the legislation actually was. There's fears about it mandating increases in funding, about the funding levels being determined by the Community College Commission, not the legislature, and a variety of other things that somewhat clouded and confused the legislation. So fast forward today, it made it to the House floor, was heard in the House on general file, and our good Representative Bob Nicholas here from Laramie County brought forward an amendment that essentially changed the entire piece altogether. It basically changed the legislation, removed any changes to funding, and basically said, rather, we'd like to have members of the JAC, members of the Community College Commission, and other interested parties get together over the interim to create a funding model for community colleges, and then to consider that funding model in the biennial appropriations in next session. And it's an interesting space. For those of you that have been around the block here in Wyoming for a while, we've had, 2 blue ribbon task forces about community college funding models. Representative Nicholas also brought up the desire to look at a statewide mill levy for community colleges, something else that has been brought up and tried numerous times. In reality, they're good things to have. And I think many of us have struggled through the fact that we don't have a funding model at the legislative side. We have, what did we spend in the previous years in the standard budget? Bring that forward. And then this exception request budget. And that's the funding model. And that has been confusing. So we support the concept of researching and doing a funding model study, developing a funding model, providing clarity, making sure the appropriate parties have some involvement in that. And I don't think that's the concern at all. Our bigger issue is to create stability in our funding now, so that we don't continue to rise up and down with the tides. And maybe a way to put it into perspective, I don't know if there is another state agency that goes into every biennia facing a budget cut. And essentially the way it works right now with enrollment growth funding and the standard budget funding, we will see in this case $14.3 million for this biennium in enrollment growth above our standard budget that goes away at the end of this year. So we go back facing a cut essentially of $14.3 million that we have to then argue and rationalize to get it back in. And we do that every biennium. And that is a struggle and a stress that's put on the community colleges. Those dollars are wonderful. We love the enrollment growth dollars. They do a lot of good for one-time only things. But as I shared with the Appropriations Committee, it can be incredibly frustrating when we have to look internally at what we cut or stop doing so we can invest in ongoing needs. And then we have $1 million sitting out here that we know we can't touch for those types of efforts because it's going to go away at the end of this year, at the end of this biennium. We're trying to fix that. So that's what I know. It went through the amendment actually passed, I think, on a 29-24 vote on first reading. I don't know what plans we have for working with the House for second reading and third reading, how that will move through. And certainly I don't know what will happen when it gets to the Senate, but we hope that there's still an opportunity to recognize we need to have the conversation about a funding model. but also say we need to make this change to the way the commission advances its request for state aid to the community colleges. Let's do that and do the funding model study, and then come up with the best approach for everyone in the long term. So that's where we're at with the majority of the major legislative items. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know that Trustee Little would also like to talk about House Bill 114, which is the repeal of the gun-free zones, or what people are commonly referring it to as guns in school legislation. And so I don't know if you want to maybe.
Mr. Chairman, before we move over to 114, you had proposed earlier that why not try to do both with the 118, go forward with the recalibration idea as well as the study. Has that gained any support in your discussion with anyone?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, I don't know if it has or if it hasn't. I haven't had the opportunity to get caught back up on emails to hear sort of what the strategy is to approach it. But as I've just shared, that's what I think. I think I believe Representative Nicholas has a valid argument and a valid point. We need to have that conversation. But I don't think we do that at the expense of stability and funding for the community colleges, and ultimately at the expense of stability for the education that we provide our students. I hope that we can find a compromise within this session to do both.
Just a little background for trustees in terms of, as Dr. Schaefer talked about the blue ribbon panel, we had that about 10 years ago, and then we had the task force, which was supposed to be a couple of years and wound up going 3 years, if I remember correctly. And in those instances, and what concerns me a great deal, I don't disagree. In fact, I really laud Representative Nicholas for his comment about a statewide support of the community colleges, not just being a burden on those 7 counties. But having sat in both Blue Ribbon and Task Force and attending those meetings regularly, I was fascinated. One of the items they were tasked with in both cases, in particular, it rings true in the task force. One of the things they were supposed to do was to come up with a funding system that would have more stability and that would be broader. And quite honestly, every time they got close to that task force, which was made up of senators and representatives and commissioners who were on the Community College Commission, every time they got close to talking about some kind of statewide funding, that discussion lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. And then they simply put it off and walked away from it. And that was a frustration to me then, and I hope the attitude and the philosophy is changing a bit, and they'll take a stronger look at that. But that's what concerns me, is you do get heavily into the politics when it comes to the statewide funding possibility for having some kind of statewide mill levy. In addition, I wanted to ask for clarification on this. We have the 14.1 million, but we did not ask for an exception budget, which would have been our normal case at this point, right?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that is correct. State statute actually allows for us to come back every year with an exception budget request for changes in enrollment for the most previous year and that 2004-2005. We chose not to come forward this session with any exception request. In fact, I think we are one of the few that have actually not asked for anything in the supplemental budget. So we opted not to, as a way to say we'll forego asking for additional money, which by statute we should be doing, and would rather work on the funding model in general.
And by we, we're talking about the community college system, not just LCCC. And in so doing, I think we've been willing to try to find a better way to help our students. And, I hope we can find, as Dr. Schaefer and others have suggested, a way where we can not only do the analysis of what would best serve the state, but also provide some funding in the interim, because otherwise that tends to put more pressure on the community college system, and unfairly so, I think, in terms of how other agencies operate.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, certainly having you communicate with the legislators from Laramie County, Albany County would be would be helpful. I might even encourage our student ex officio member to have that conversation as well. At this point, all I could really offer, based on what I know of the amendment in the legislation, is to encourage them to go back to the Majority Floor Leader Berger's original bill, support that, don't support the amendment to the legislation on its next two, and really stress the importance of the core purpose of that bill, that is, it was originally proposed. And then as I learn more, I'll certainly advise you on other types of messaging you may want to share with our local legislators.
Any other comments for Dr. Schaefer on House Bill 118? Then let's move forward. Trustee Little?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been following the Guns in Schools bill, the repeal of the gun-free zone, Representative Yagi's bill. And I believe it has now passed the House of Representatives and is going to the Senate. And I personally have concerns about the bill and its effect on the community colleges. If I understand correctly, if the bill passes, that means that folks in community colleges can carry concealed weapons if they have a concealed weapon permit, if I understand it correctly, that students, faculty, security, anybody. I know from conversations with my husband that there is obviously concern with the K-12 school district, but I haven't heard any of the community colleges or the Wyoming Community College Commission take a stand on that bill. I'm wondering if that's purposeful, or that we're purposefully not taking a stand on it, or if it's something that we should discuss as a board of trustees and whether we want to decide to take a stand on that bill and communicate that with our legislators.
Chair.
Trustee Little, I just want to respond to you in part. Well, I'll let Don, since he's also on that. Go ahead.
Yes.
Trustee Erickson.
The Wyoming Association of Community Colleges trustees did take a position on this, a unanimous position against Bill 114. They had and I would be reporting on that later, but no, you would be reporting that later because you're going to take care of the board meeting, right? Right. But then when it comes to the Wyoming Community College Commission, that's a different group of people. They're appointed, and they are by statute unable to lobby.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, I misspoke. I'm sorry. I meant the Wyoming Association of Community College Trustees. I misspoke. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, that was definitely discussed unanimously by all 7 colleges to not support 114. And it was basically the same position that was taken at the previous time that was before the legislature, and there was no reason to change it.
Just to fill in just a little bit on that, I was there for the hearing when it was in committee, and there were several folks speaking for and against in the associations, and our executive director did speak and represent our position as WACT regarding that. He did not take very long to speak because there were so many people. It was really pushed. Plus, the Wyoming Education Association has also taken a position of non-support for that bill, and a number of other groups. One of the things that I have heard and has been discussed in a number of places is 2 things, really. One, the lack of ability to know the level of expertise of those folks, because there's a big difference between having a permit, being able to go through and get your concealed carry permit, which in some places, I know I spoke with Carolyn Danko, a trustee at Northwest College, and when she went through the program, or someone in her family, I forget which, they had to show proficiency in terms of use of the weapon. Here at LCCC, we had a course that was ran, I believe, last fall in the training center, and a friend of mine went through that, and it was run by a person out of Utah, was the presenter. and that person, there was no requirement for any kind of proficiency with the gun. So you have seemingly a significant difference in what's required in terms of getting that concealed carry as far as proficiency, let alone shooter situations or everything. So that's one issue that has been discussed quite a bit, both in the association and also in other groups. The other one is local control. And our association has been strong in support that we feel it's important. We have local control to take care of that. And I think that's consistent with what I've read in other areas. Trustee Little?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I understand correctly, then there has been a position of the Wyoming Association of Community Colleges communicated with the House of Representatives, or members of the House, and in committee. And is there also a plan to communicate with members of the Senate?
Yes, and I'll send you the letter that was sent under my name, but Steve Baumer really was the key that he put together the concepts that the association had, and we sent that letter to the committee, and it will, I'm sure, also be going, I'll talk to him, but I'm sure it's already gone to or will go to the Senate, although we're not sure which committee.
Right.
We don't know which committee that will go out to yet, but he'll get it to them. But I'll share that letter with you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you answered one of the questions I was going to have. I have a question and a comment, but you answered the first question. We're not clear at this point as to where it's going to go in the Senate. Originally, it was thought that it would go to education, or was it judiciary?
I think the hope was that it would go to education.
But right now, it's still in limbo.
Unless you've heard something
Okay.
about Schaefer.
Yeah, I haven't heard
Okay.
anything different.
My comment, and I think this is important, that I think everyone on the WAC board, and I'm not speaking for this group, but I suspect that we all recognize the rights of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is important to us, the right to bear arms. However, there are opportunities, they're not opportunities, there are times where you have to make some constraints on that. For example, in this bill that would allow guns in schools, quote unquote, it's prohibited in the courtroom. Okay? If it's prohibited in the courtroom, it's recognized that there should be some times where you have some constraints. Well, we think as an educational community that the schools and the colleges are those places that it should also have constraints. We're not opposed to the Second Amendment in any way.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to get across to those that recognize that we're opposed to this particular bill, because the proponents of the bill are basically saying, if you are not for this bill, you're against the Second Amendment, and that's not the case.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question as far as insurance is concerned.
Yes.
My understanding from my husband is that if this bill passes, that Laramie County School District number 1 will have a horrible problem getting an insurance carrier. And if they do find one, insurance will be quite high. So for some reason, the insurance companies don't believe things will be safer, which I think is interesting. But have we heard anything about insurance costs for the community college or community colleges if this bill passes?
I would ask Dr. Schaefer to respond to that.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, this was a question that came up last year when this legislation came forward, and we did some inquiry with our insurance companies and others, and surprisingly, they didn't think it would have an impact on basically the insurance premium that we would have to carry. The two things that they shared, though, one, that type of approach outside of a few states where it's actually allowed, hasn't really been tested to see what the type of risks are inherent in those types of change in legislation. So part of it is the fact that there isn't really precedent or data out there to say that if this happens, these types of risks will increase. And so they didn't necessarily think that there would be an immediate change in insurance premiums as a result of those changes. However, they did say all it takes, just like when you're driving your car and you get into that accident, your insurance premium goes up. It just takes one or two of those types of situations that could drive the cost of insurance up. But so we did look at that, and they said no, they didn't think that it would actually impact the insurance premium as a result of the legislation.
Okay, that's good news. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think excuse me, Mr. Chair, but I think the bottom line on this one is, if indeed we're unable to get the bill rejected, the local control amendment is really significant. As I was listening last Friday, Thursday, whatever day it was that we went to the legislature and listened to them speak on this particular issue, on this particular bill, the point was made that there are rural school districts throughout the state that do not have resource officers like we have in the larger communities, and that such a opportunity for having someone carry a concealed weapon if they have a permit in the school would be something that they might want to have. So if we have the amendment that would allow for local control, it can then be dealt in those rural areas differently than we would deal with it here in a more urban area.
But, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, that makes sense. So is there an amendment?
One is being drafted, as I understand it.
Okay. Thank you. I'll keep following.
Definitely, and we would appreciate your contacting your legislators and expressing your perspectives. Students, has ASG had any discussion of this? I know at the University of Wyoming, some students, I think this time around last year, they did make a statement. This year, there's been individual students who have made statements in that committee meeting. Have you folks had any discussion on that or any interest in discussing it?
As a group for SGA, we haven't discussed it at all. Yeah, no one's really thought about it. Personally, for myself, I think that it shouldn't be passed. I think that we don't know who really has the, like you said, who has the guns, how well they can use the gun. I don't know, just some of the people that I see on campus, I wouldn't want to guess if they had a concealed weapon or not personally. So I would feel safer if it wasn't, if this legislation didn't go through.
Appreciate your comments. Yes, Bill. Trustee.
Madam Secretary, I don't want this in the minutes, but at a meeting last week, Senator Coe said that it'll never pass the Senate. So I think that's good news, and I hope it's true. But I'm just telling you what he told me. I don't want that in the minutes. Thank you.
I don't know if that works, Bill. Did her fingers not? No, I appreciate that. With that, do we have additional comments, Dr. Schaefer?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions or proceed on with your meeting.
Do you have any other questions for Dr. Schaefer?
Mr. Chairman, there was some discussion about changes to the Hathaway Scholarship. Is that correct? There's a bill concerning the Hathaway Scholarship. Is that right? May I ask about that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, there have been actually a handful of different conversations, and I would be lying if I told you I knew exactly where each one was at our Friday updates. We should get a better sense. I know there was legislation that was looking at creating a career and technical education component to the Hathaway that would actually use part of the earnings off of the current Hathaway corpus that aren't being spent on Hathaway, and that came out of I want to say joint education. I think basically whittled back to do a study to look at that. There was some legislation that was moved forward to actually increase the amount of Hathaway that is being distributed. And it seems like there was one other that I can't remember. And I don't know, maybe Trustee Mark knows more if you've been following that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Trustee Little, there's the CTE bill that's, I think it's in its third reading, I want to say, and it is for a task force. Now it started out as potentially a separate scholarship, and now it's gone down to a task force. There were just recently 3 other Hathaway bills. 190 was the measure of academic rigor in the high schools, which has since been withdrawn. That was this past week. 191 was the it was actually talking about 15 credits, making full-time 15 credits.
That was
And,
Freeman's bill, correct?
Yeah, Representative Freeman brought that up, and he's also part of the Complete College Wyoming committee, if you will. And then 192, which is still alive, and just had its first reading on the general file today, and did pass. That's the for 2 consecutive semesters, if a college student who's receiving the Hathaway at an opportunity or lower level, if they receive a 3.25 GPA for 2 consecutive semesters, they are able to go up in the scholarship. So there's currently 4 merit scholarships, and so if I'm receiving the 3rd level, it would, if as the bill reads currently, if I receive it 3.25 for 2 consecutive semesters, I would boost up to the top level of Hathaway scholarship.
Is that Representative Throne's bill? Mr. Chairman?
I believe it's Representative Throne and Representative Freeman.
Okay. very good.
I believe
I have
are on that bill.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Booker. Yes, Trustee Erickson.
There's another bill that I'm kind of interested in, and that's the HB 101, which it would be education for charter schools, and that authorizing the Community College Commission to oversee and approve the operations of the charter schools. We have any info as to where that's gone?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members, or Trustee Erickson, members of the board, my understanding was that failed in committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Did not. All right, we could just spend a lot of time on the legislature here. In fact, we've got a little bit more that we will spend. At this point, we're into board reports. We've kind of segued into that anyway. At this time, I'd like to ask a couple of folks and go through this in a fashion that might give us a chance to cover some of these in some depth, or at least to provide the information we need. So first of all, Don and I spoke today a little bit, and he wanted me to cover the report on WACT, and then I'll have him talk a little bit more in terms of the Wyoming Community College Commission. Having said that, one of the first things that I wanted to share with you in terms of WACT was to talk a little bit about what had been covered in the meetings for you folks. So without boring you terribly, I wanted to share with you the fact that we have new officers in the Wyoming Association of Community College Trustees. And your new president is Walter Rogge. Walter is from Sheridan College, and I think he served as secretary this past year, and he will do a bang-up job for us. I think he's really very fine. And then in addition to that, you have Jim Voigt from Northwest, and Jim was the vice president with me this past year and is continuing in that role. Additionally, we have a new representative on the board, Mickey Douglas from Central Wyoming College, and Mickey was kind of railroad trained. No, she was quite willing, but she is serving as secretary, and I think will do a fine job for us, and she'll be very involved in WAC. And then last, Trustee Erickson kind of got me convinced that I should continue as treasurer, and part of that is because of the way we handle our finances, not because they dearly love me, but I have a hand and I can sign checks, and the way we operate we need to have that person here, which leads me to the next part. There was an audit that was requested by WAC. And we're going to try to do an audit every year, but I would like to give kudos to two of our former students who were asked to do the audit. And they had graduated from UW. They're working, I think they're each one course away from having their master's. They did, on their undergraduate work, pursue and do an audit as a part of their internship. So working with WAC's record keeper and Steve, they were able to complete the audit this past summer, and it took them a few months to do it. We do not have extensively complex records, financial records, but excuse me, they did do a very good job in terms of the audit. The audit report was accepted by the board. And again, those two students really did a heck of a job for us. Danielle and Trista, they're both ex-students of a person sitting in our room here, Jerry Griego's, and really pleasant. And WACT, they have agreed to perhaps do this with, we'll see if those students might like to do it again. And then we want to try to expand that and involve students from other parts of the state in that process. So I think this is one way the trustees show their faith in the students and the quality of the students that are coming out of the program. So we really appreciate what they did for us. So we had the audit approved. In addition to that, I wanted to let you know that those of you who are interested might want to keep up. Executive Director Steve Bomber's contract was extended through the fiscal year, our fiscal year, and which is June 30th. He will be evaluated during that time, and then the executive board will pursue an extended contract or change in contract as appropriate. So that keeps you up to date with him. And then in terms of Complete College Wyoming, I wanted to take and segue from that, and I'll come back to you, Trustee Erickson, but I had asked Brad to speak for just a moment about Complete College Wyoming, which was also discussed extensively and has been a key focus for WACT. So Brad is our, careful how I say this, he is the State Department of Education's representative on the Complete College Wyoming group, which is appointed by the governor. So membership on there is appointed through the governor, and he is the representative from the State Department of Education. And of course, he's trustee with us. So we really appreciate that relationship to be a part of that group. So if you'd like to comment a little bit on that and your role, I would appreciate it, Brad.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So, and fellow trustees, this is something that I just recently hopped on, if you will. And it's been almost about 2 months at this point. And the role for me, it primarily came as the Hathaway person, the Hathaway consultant for the Wyoming Department of Education, and my background in higher education has kind of catapulted me into this. And with my communication with all the districts and schools around the state, and this has helped, that's kind of defined my role. Through the Hathaway Scholarship, we talk to districts nonstop, and therefore we get to help provide more information, especially since we're much more hands-on with districts, and often we'll have a captive audience with guidance counselors and so forth. So my role, and in connection with the Hathaway Scholarship, and to even segue into the bill, the 191 that was asking for full-time to be 15 credits. While that didn't pass, that's an opportunity as my role as a part of the Complete College Wyoming and the Hathaway to really push those initiatives and help guidance counselors and students around the state to understand that while Hathaway pays for 12 credits as a full-time student, this is our opportunity to push 15 credits because of the studies and so forth behind it. that's in short what my role is at the department.
Appreciate that. Any questions for Trustee Barker?
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, and I appreciate Trustee Barker actually providing that connection. Freeman's bill to essentially move the threshold of attendance from 12 credits to 15 credits for Hathaway purposes was really driven by some work that Complete College America and certainly work that we've Complete College Wyoming have done. They're using it as one of their game changers, and they're calling it 15 to finish, I think, if I have that correct. And it's really a focus on, they've actually taken the position that even though we measure completion with 150% of time, 200% of time, and everything, what they're saying is, why are we ignoring completion on time? If it's a 2-year degree, why aren't we completing in 2 years? If it's a 4-year baccalaureate, why aren't we completing? And so they're really pushing it, and they've really come with a basic messaging that's clear that for you to finish 60 to 64 credits in 2 years, you have to take 15 credits a semester. Now, of course, you can go in the summertime and do all that good stuff, but they've actually been tracking that, saying 15 is full time, 12 isn't full time. That's really where the impetus for this legislation was. And while it didn't pass, I think it started some conversations about the importance of considering what do we encourage, what do we entice with the different type of social policies that we have in place, such as the Hathaway program. Do we want them just to go 12 credits, or do we want them to be able to finish on time? And if that's the case, they may need to take 15 credits. And there was some wonderful conversation around the concept, but the connection to Complete College Wyoming, I think, is one that shouldn't be overlooked. So I appreciate the trustee bringing it up.
We have, just for your awareness, in terms of CCW, Kathy Dolan is also on the Complete College Wyoming. But we're very fortunate that we have indirectly a representative on our board that participates in CCW. So we'll have some firsthand information. Not that Kathy Dolan's is ever in doubt, but we really appreciate that. In addition to that, now I want to go back to Don, and I'd ask Don to give us a little information about Community College Commission and any add-in for WACT that you would like to.
Yes, I'd like to add a couple things relative to WAC. In addition to the board meeting, which you covered, we had an education session that was very well done. It was in the morning of Thursday the 29th. And obviously, we discussed a lot about what we've just been talking about in terms of legislative strategy and advocacy preparation. But we also had a nice presentation by a legislator, John Freeman. John Freeman gave us what he considered to be important when you're talking to, if he were the lobbyist or the advocate, however we're using the politically correct words these days. He said that it's extraordinarily important for the advocate to listen, to hear what's going on, to make a straight message to the legislator, and to tell them, are you for it or against? To not give any sense of maybe waffling one way or the other. And the other thing is that the legislator asks a question that you don't have the answer. Don't try to make up an answer. I mean, it's a pretty understandable, legitimate deal. Don't make up an answer. But he's obviously a friend of the colleges. I believe he's on the faculty at Casper College. Am I correct?
He's
At Western College. Thank you. At Western College.
Well, was a trustee on the, I don't know that he's faculty, he's a trustee. He was.
Both.
Both?
Yeah, he was. He is serving as faculty now. He was trustee, but can't be a trustee and a legislator. So he's just a.
Whatever his positions were, he is a champion of the community colleges here in the state of Wyoming. We've talked a little bit about the the Complete College Wyoming, and we had in our update on Thursday morning, Jackie Freeze from Central. Okay.
Western.
Western. Well, it's out that way to the west.
They may not appreciate that.
Yeah, please. We have anybody from the press to know. Rosalind, don't put that in the wingspan. Anyway, yeah, it's hard to remember where they all are. But she gave us an update on Complete College Wyoming, which she then again later did that at the college commission, the Wyoming Community College Commission. Then later on, we had a presentation by Steve Baumer, our executive director, again on advocacy, basically confirming and reinforcing what Representative Freeman had said earlier. Then we had the opportunity in the afternoon, those of us that had some time, we went and we met with the legislators. I happened to meet with Senator Pappas to speak at that time our opposition against the gun bill, the gun in schools bill, and he was very courteous and said he was thinking about it and he would look at it very closely. Then in the evening we had the awards and reception, the legislative leadership deal, and I think most of us were there, and we had two people from LCCC that were awarded the leadership award for a foundation member, and Billy Edelman, and then Lisa Tremblay. So we got good recognition for our college. We had others from our college that were nominated, and that's always good to have good folks that go forward in the pool for the actual leadership, which Bill Dilbois, our trustee, was one of the nominees, and we had a good pool. Every one of these awards had good pools of people from all 7 of the community colleges. Any questions or comments from the others that were in attendance to the advocacy education?
I would just add that we had Roz Shalisky was an honoree, and the student was Bill Dallas, right, who oftentimes we see here, and we will next week.
I just wanted to say the morning session, you mentioned that Steve gave the presentation. He wanted Mike Mosier to be there because he is considered to be one of the finest lobbyists. He, of course, is for the liquor and alcoholic beverages in Wyoming, but I think that should be mentioned, that that's what Steve wanted. But of course, he took over and is very capable. This is just total aside, but he's always told me his name is Bamer, not Bomber.
And I think
Bamer.
it is. It's Bamer.
Did I mispronounce it?
Well, both of you did.
I think we both said bomber. You got me started. No.
Well, thank
Trustee
you.
Erickson.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Bill, for making sure that we have that correctly.
Well,
And it's now,
It's important.
Mr. Chair, Bamer.
Yes,
All right. Do you want me to go?
you'll keep an eye on me on that.
Would you like to go forward with the college commission? Excuse me. Somebody else wanted to talk about?
I just wanted to say something when you're finished.
No, I'm finished with the advocacy session. So I'm finished with the WAC part. I'm going to go on next to the Community College Commission. So if you have something about WAC.
Well, this is just about Steve Bamer. Steve Bamer, I have known him probably for about maybe 5 years now, because he did our one of our training sessions here. And I want to say that Steve has grown so much since he first came on in that role, representing us. And that letter I thought Ed wrote it, but Steve Bamer did an amazing job on the letter to the legislature. So I hope, can you send it out to everyone because it's worth reading. It's wonderful.
Yes, it should have been out to you, but I will make sure that it gets out
I've
again.
seen it, and
Okay.
it's just-
To be specific, that's the letter in opposition to 114.
Yes.
Quite well written, with Ed's name on the bottom of it.
Well, and then we made a mistake on there. I didn't catch, nor did Steve, but we'll leave that quietly aside.
I think those of us that saw it saw the mistake. You want to make a comment
No,
on that now
no,
that you brought it up?
No.
It really isn't that big. Can I go on then to the Community
Yes.
College Commission?
Continue, please.
All right, I realize. Do it now. Thank you, Tara. You know, my left shin gets really black and blue.
Oh my God.
We appreciate your efforts to.
Thank you.
Well, and you'll be pleased to hear that the Community College Commission was a very brief meeting. However, I'm going to make it a little longer in a couple areas. Typically, the Community College Commission deals with organizational reports and updates on various types of things. And particularly, they had an update on the summer enrollment that I thought might be of somewhat of interest to you. This past summer. Mr. Chair, should we take a recess? I got her crying on it.
Trustee Erickson, would you share the enrollment?
Yes, I will. The head count, the credit head count by counties, I thought was extraordinarily interesting. We at LCCC, our total was 1,524 this past summer, which 919 were from Laramie County, 240 from Albany County, and then from the rest of the counties. And there was only one county in Laramie County, the state of Wyoming, that did not have a representative or a student here. Anyone make a guess? I won't let you go too long. Niobrara.
Yep.
Niobrara didn't have.
There are no people in Niobrara. Why would we have a student?
And then if we look at the credit head count by program study for Laramie County, full-time compared to part-time. And I don't think there's anyone that's going to be surprised by this. We had credit head count by program, 66 full-time and 1,458 part-time. I mean, that definitely demonstrates that we have a lot of students here that are not full-time students. Now, there's a couple things that I saw that I thought would be of somewhat interest in there. And they dealt with other reports. And then, the commission has to approve new programs. And there are two new programs. One in Northwest, it's a pilot heating, ventilation, and air conditioning apprenticeship certificate. And then at Central Wyoming, a pilot medical assistant certificate. Before I got on this board, I didn't realize the statewide the connection. We are a local controlled college, but we're part of a statewide system. And the community college, as we know, the Community College Commission, they approve any tuition increases, and they approve the addition of a new program at any of the facilities, any of our colleges. And I suspect there are other things that they approve as well, which I have yet to learn about. Then the executive director gave his report, and there's been a long maybe 2 years of waiting for something to develop in longitudinal data collection. And that seemed to have stalled. And then a couple of meetings ago, if it wasn't maybe the last meeting of the commission, the executive director, Dr. Rose, was directed by the commissioners to look into developing a means to get that longitudinal data assessment going forward, which he reported on, and it is now going forward, as I understand it. Then when it comes to the Wyoming, the Complete College Wyoming, let's see, where did I put that?
You're on the edge.
I'm on the edge of oh, that's, okay. I don't know how many are aware of this website of the Complete College Wyoming, and if we are aware of it, how often we look at it. But about every other month, there is an update that is on that website. And you already stole my thunder. One of the things they recognized in this latest newsletter in January 2015, the new members. In addition to Trustee Barker, our president, Joe Schaefer, is now a member of the team. I believe you are replacing Dr. Armstrong from Eastern. Another point I want to make, and then I'll be done, is there's a continuing dialogue going on trying to identify what it means to be college ready. And it appears that part of the dialogue is how to insert a student that is not going to a completion of a college degree, but is looking for a career and wants to get onto a career pathway. And I think they're coming close to coming up with some language. However, this college and career readiness definition has about 5 inches of prose. So I think they're kind of zeroing in on a definition, and I don't know, maybe Dr. Schaefer might want to add to that. I'm not asking you to, but if you wish, please do. It seems like it's a tough thing to kind of come to a consensus as what it means to be college ready and career ready. Given that, I thought the meetings that we attended were really informative. I know I didn't fall asleep anywhere, so it was a good investment of my time.
Thank you, Trustee Erickson, for your thorough report. We really appreciate that. And for the bit of humor that it provided. The levity we did need. The only thing I would add to that, and Dr. Schaefer, if you'd keep us apprised of any changes that might occur, you may hear them. If I hear them or someone else does, we'll keep you up on it. But April 16th, Central Wyoming College would be the next commission meeting as it now stands. And June 26th would be the next commission meeting in Sheridan. And keep in mind that at commission meetings, we have typically a WACT meeting. So you are welcome to go to those. And I urge you, if you wish to do so, to do that in addition to the board members. The only difference is you would not be a voting member when you go to the board meeting, but attending those, I think you would find very beneficial. So I just give you those dates to look in the future and perhaps plan ahead with. Having said that, the last item I had was for board reports was from Trustee Little on the arts, if you would, please.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting last night concerning the music program here at LCCC. It was a meeting that Joe and I had called and put together. And we invited members of the community who are involved in music programs around the community, several of whom who have been involved in music programs here at LCCC, specifically the wind ensemble, which I have also been a part of. We also invited faculty from here at LCCC, and then Trustee Dubois and Trustee Erickson and myself were there also, as well as Joe and Jose, Nicole Bryan, who is the interim Dean of Arts and Humanities, and Jeff Bowles and Brian Christian from the music faculty. We had about 25 people there. It was such a great turnout. We had to go make the table bigger and get extra chairs. We had a wonderful discussion. I called the meeting together because of different things I had been hearing from the community involving the music program at LCCC, and I've been concerned about maybe some lack of accurate information that was being shared back and forth, as well as concern about losing some of the community support that we've enjoyed for a long time in the music program. We started out the meeting with Joe giving a summary of the music program here at LCCC, the number of music majors that we have here, and the success of those music majors and the amount of scholarships that have been used for music here at LCCC, and then how that configuration has changed. Joe did a beautiful job at being very informative and yet succinct and straight to the point, and got out some important information to the community members that were there. And then we heard from the community members. And I would say 3 basic calls came from that meeting from the community. Very different than what I expected, but 3 calls came from the community. Number 1 was the community would like to see more focus on participation in LCCC music programs by students who are non-music majors. I was expecting there to be more of a focus on bringing more music majors into LCCC with the use of scholarship money. That's not what we heard at all. What we heard instead was that the community would like to see us focus participation in the music program by students here who are majoring in something else, and then are encouraged to participate in music programs, including the use of activities scholarships, giving small scholarships to students who are involved in the music programs, vocal and instrumental. The second call that came loud and clear from the community was increased outreach from the music faculty here at LCCC to the high schools in Cheyenne. And we heard many stories, some strong opinions, many observations about the lack of LCCC music faculty at East High School, Central High School, and South High School to recruit students. That music faculty from other places come there, but not from LCCC. At the end of the meeting, Joe looked around and said, "I've heard that message loud and clear," because he was hearing it a lot. And the third call from the community was to increase outreach here within LCCC from the faculty to LCCC students themselves, to invite those students to be participants in the music programs here at LCCC. So those were the 3 charges or callings that came from that meeting. I felt it was a very, very successful meeting. The atmosphere was very positive. The community really wants the LCCC music programs to succeed and be important members of the music community here in Cheyenne. And when we left, we talked about having follow-up, and I asked around the room if the community members would also be interested in any kind of follow-up meetings, and all of them said they would be happy to participate in that. One of the things I foresee is perhaps in our academic and student affairs committee that we are going to be meeting monthly. That would be a good place to perhaps call back some of the folks from the community, or for us to come up with an action plan of how we want to support Joe and the music faculty in these callings and charges. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Little. I really think that brings forth some interesting perspectives. As you said, a little different view than perhaps we thought we would get there. Any other comments or questions for Trustee Little? Yes, Trustee Du Bois.
Well, having been there, I agree with her in everything she said. And one of the main things was that our music program, and of course, I think that you could say theater and art too, because they're all connected. I mean, they're all part of the arts. The key word is enrichment. Enriching lives through the arts. And Brad can know that's been a big issue in the legislature too, about how much the Hathaway should or shouldn't help with the arts as well as the academics. And so they're all tied together. And Brenda did a superb job of running the meeting. And I agree with her. I think follow-up should come and should be there.
Thank you, Bill.
That really, I think, also speaks to the issue. This was an ad hoc group that met, I believe, and if we have the academic and student affairs, which is a board committee, that's the kind of thing that we would hope to be able to achieve from that. I know I had a question when I first was hearing about this a little bit. I was going, is this an operational committee or is this a board committee? And I think it truly was, if anything, kind of unified in that approach, but I think very functional. Yes, Trustee Lummis.
Brenda,
Yes, Chris.
was Kara Smith on the committee? Kara is a junior high teacher. I introduced you to her one day,
Yes.
and she's an adjunct instructor here in the music department. She is a sharp cookie, yes. But then it would siphon down to the junior high also. You know, reaching those kids at an early age is, why not?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Trustee Lummis, she was not there.
Okay.
We had several members of Laramie County School District Number 1. Sean Ambrose, the music coordinator, was there. We had Bob and Debbie Matthews, who are music teachers. Chris Muggenberg, who's a music teacher. Nick Simons, Beth Keene from East High School. So we
Band director from South, I'm not sure his name. Sat right across from Nick.
Got Nick Simons.
Nick, is that Nick Simon? Okay,
So
sorry.
we had several
I didn't know
music
his
teachers
name.
of it, but not.
Well, she's of interest simply because she's teaching here.
Yeah. But we had a very lively discussion about the place of music in academic support, wasn't it? Great discussion.
Mr.
Well-
Chair, just a quick comment. I certainly second what Trustee Bill just got done saying, but Trustee Brenda, you did a marvelous job. You really did. Everybody was comfortable. Some folks might have thought this is going to be a disgruntled group of people, but they were very professional in the way they presented themselves. And I think you used the phrase, we are hearing the voice of the community. And I think that it would be good for us to trumpet, to use that metaphor, trumpet that voice as much as we can and to expand it. You did a good job.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Don.
He's having fun with the trumpet. I thought we could drum up some excitement. or
I used it
something.
once before, I guess.
Thank you for those reports. I think that's very helpful
Mr. Chair,
to
there's
us.
another report.
If you would,
Yes.
Trustee Erickson.
I'd like to present to the board a draft of the operating budget for ourselves.
would you like me to help you pass those out?
Each of you, if you would, please take one of these.
Is there enough
This
for
is-
our
yes.
student?
Yes, there should be. Here's another one. One more. Before. Yep, and there should be another one there too, I hope. Okay. All right. The reason I am requesting that we review this at this point is that in the budget process that we have here at the college, the first entry of the budget for the fiscal 16 is due February 13th. Well, we will not have another meeting prior to February 13th. And what I have handed out to you is a sheet that it says president. Well, we are listed under the president's budget, which is fine. And if you notice, you'll see the very top there is the trustees. That grouping is what I'm going to be speaking to. Now, this is just a preliminary setup of what I think is worthwhile for us to have for our budget. I'm going to recommend that once I review this, that you refer it to the Finance Committee so that it can be tweaked and make some additional changes. But what I have here is essentially pretty much the fiscal 2015, not too much change, but if you look where you see the yellow highlight, it says the fiscal 2016 proposed budget. The third line down is the contractual service with the foundation, which we have currently at $306,000. At this point, I was advised that I should leave that at this level because we're currently talking with the foundation about what that contract might be in the year ahead. Then the next item would be board professional development. It's about 6 or so lines down. And I'd like to ask us as a group to identify what are we wanting to do in professional development. This past year, we had $6,000. We have not done anything with that $6,000. I could carry it over this year, but I think it's important for us to see and look ahead to what our professional development as a board, as individuals might be. The next item I want to direct your attention to is the travel in-state and the travel out-state. These are dollars that are basically for us to go and participate in the WAC meetings, to participate in the ACCT national conference, for our NLS, is that correct? The National Legislative, what's the S stand for?
Summit.
Summit, thank you. Which you are, I believe, Trustee Barker attending. That's going to be next week. Okay. And then a big change, a real big change here is that under innovative funds, I didn't put any money in there. And the reason I didn't put any money in there is because for the previous years that we've had $2,500 in there, it hasn't been spent for anything. And so I ask us to look at, well, if we want to have innovative funds, what is it that we want to innovate? Just to examine that particular area. So as I said, I'd like to have this referred to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee can then tweak this and make some modifications if necessary. If any of you have any additional comments, things that you would like to see us address, please share that with me. Right now, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to respond to them.
Trustee Little.
Nope, I'm just rubbing my hands.
If not, then I would ask you, Mr. Chair, to refer this to the Finance Committee.
So done. We don't need a motion on that. We just need to
thank you.
Send this to the Finance Committee, and with the understanding that we would come back and approve this budget probably when we approve the entire budget. So we've got some time.
I'd like to get something to the whoever I'm supposed to give this to. Is it Jane? okay, by February 13. So if you want to give some input to us, that doesn't mean we can't still do some tweaking on it at a later time. One of the things I want to do also is, I don't quite understand, Dr. Schaefer, the scoring that you have charged all of the budget makers to do. And I'd kind of like to see us go through that exercise on our budget with your help.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, glad to do that. Most of the scoring refers to increased investments. So significant increases to operating expenses or one-time only investments is really what we do. The Budget Resource Allocation Committee goes through and scores the different proposals for those types of things. So should the trustees ask for a significant increase in their operating budget, then yes, there would be some scoring.
For example, let's say we put $20,000 into innovative funds. If we put $20,000 into innovative funds, we better have a good reason for why we want to do that.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, that is absolutely correct. Another example may be if you negotiate or renegotiate a change in your legal services contract with the law firm who has represented us so well this past year, that would be another potential increase.
I didn't get a kick.
Jackie's going to wonder why your leg is black and blue.
She knows. Or she may not have.
I sleep this way.
The right one's coming.
I think it's appropriate for us to have questions that we might ask or give to Treasurer Trustee Erickson. That's a long title, Treasurer Trustee Erickson. But we would have comments or suggestions for him. That's what he's seeking. I think as we do that, now I know you set a timeline of February 13th.
Actually, I would request that if you have some thoughts that we should consider at the Finance Committee, that we get it by February 10.
When's the Finance Committee meeting?
February 11.
Wednesday.
So those, since that meeting is noticed, those of you who might have some comments, please get those so they could be commented on at the Finance Committee, and that'd be the appropriate place, I believe.
And an aside here, I don't think that PR has been advised of the change in time for the Finance Committee. You know, usually it is the Thursday before the third Wednesday, and we changed that to the Wednesday before the third Wednesday. So,
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, you have just advised the wonderful person who would advise PR on the change of those dates. So we'll make sure that the notification gets out.
Thank you. So wouldn't that be the second Wednesday?
Yes, it was.
Wednesday before the third.
That is correct.
that's another way.
Easier.
That's another way to say it.
That would be that logic working.
Very nicely said, Trustee Little. Okay, is there anything else we need from you or that you need from us, Treasurer Erickson?
No, other than Trustee Merrill and I are definitely seeking input from the rest of the board. Would be pleased to hear from you.
We as a board would understand too that even though we're giving you that input, you're doing that work at that F&F meeting, the second Wednesday of the month, that in fact, we still have several months to come back and discuss this, that this, as with the whole budget, is not approved until July 15th. Or
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. This is just part of the timeline in which we advance this process. So the trend data or operating expenditure requests, as well as one-time only requests, go into Jane here by the 13th. She compiles those. They go on to the Budget Resource Allocation Committee, and then we go back through a series of vetting with different groups to advance them, ultimately to get to your first reading, which I believe happens in April. Yeah, so the timeline actually comes pretty quick.
yes.
Yeah. But of course, Trustee Erickson was right on that there are opportunities for modification along the way.
Okay. Moving forward, We now have board policies. We have 3 items here. Excuse me. The first item, scholarship waivers, policy 3.2. Second reading, we had revisions as indicated there that we looked at on 12/3/14 board meeting. What's your pleasure on scholarships and waivers, policy 3.2?
I move that we pass it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of policy 3.2, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. You know, it kind of sounds like we just ran through that policy, but we did beat up on that.
We've worked on it
Yes.
for several weeks.
We're finally at the point of saying, okay, I think we've got it
I
where we
wouldn't have
need
moved-
it.
I wouldn't have moved it if I thought we hadn't worked on it for quite some time.
Yeah.
And
Appreciate it.
revisions are there have been written into it.
I just think sometimes it's good to remind ourselves that we have been looking at these for a while and working on them. Counseling and Campus Wellness Policy 3.19, second reading. There wasn't any feedback that we received. Any suggestions on your part for this in
Make a
terms?
motion that we accept it?
It's been moved that we accept the campus counseling and campus wellness policy 3.19. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question? All those in favor, policy 3.19, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. A little trickier and challenging policy for us that we also spent some time beating up on this. Board Committees Policy 1.26. This one, my perspective is that we probably have a little more discussion on this one. We have revisions which have been provided to you. Do you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or changes that Vicki wants to have a chance to get down? No.
Would it be appropriate for a motion to approve ahead of time or not?
Dr. Schaefer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson. This has been an interesting journey for me because the process we've put in place, and as I've shared with you, the only procedure that you have actually pertains to the development of policies and procedures, and that's to ensure that the expectations for how policies and procedures are developed go through a very specific process to encourage broad participation and feedback, shared governance, all that great stuff. Typically, those policies originate from someplace in the campus, from a group or an individual somewhere down in the campus, and then it's natural that they move through this sort of hierarchical approach that ultimately lands on your desk. This is a board policy, and so I've grappled with that a little bit, but ultimately, following your procedure, what you're doing tonight is essentially making recommendations to the changes that would then advance that through the internal policy review process. And so tonight, if anything, if you wanted to act on it, it would be an act to essentially move that through the internal policy and procedure review process. And then it'll ultimately get back to you for first and second reading for your final approval.
We don't really need then, Dr. Schaefer, a motion that recommends this move through the consultative process. We just are asking for that to take place.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think that's correct. You would be fine if you wanted to make a formal motion to move that along in the process, but you as the originating body would make your proposed changes. From here, it would go to President's Cabinet for their first reading. From there, it goes out to consultative feedback. It comes back to President's Cabinet, to College Council, and then back to you for your first reading. So
Sounds like the legislature.
Oh, don't go.
So could this be first reading? I think we should declare it as the first reading.
Under
First
council's
reading, we
recommendation.
Basically discussed, correct?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, trustees, that is correct, and that would allow you to expedite when it actually gets back to you in final form, to not have another 2 subsequent readings for that. So I think that is fine.
Hearing that recommendation, I would accept your motion.
Okay. I do have the motion to move forward to put this board policy through the various steps of the college. And then I have a couple, wrong?
I don't think we need a motion right now. It's just a first reading meeting. This gives you an opportunity just to look at this policy, provide any suggestion, feedback, discussion that you want to about it. Then when we bring it back next meeting for second reading, then you can vote on its adoption.
Okay,
We're going to circumvent the process of sending it to President's Cabinet because it's your policy versus a college policy. Joe, would like to comment.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I don't mean to disagree with council, but with even board policies, your current procedure on the development of policies and procedures suggests that it will go through that comprehensive review process. And you could certainly exclude in adjustments to that procedure that board policies don't need to go through it, but that procedure is grounded in your other policies pertaining to shared governance and the broad-based inclusiveness of the campus to allow multiple individuals to have input into policy and procedure before they come to you for review. So according to the current procedure, I think Tara is correct. This could serve as your first reading. The next logical step would be to start it through the internal consultative feedback process. It would probably get back to you first meeting in March would be my guess based on the schedule, but that could come to you for final approval then as a process.
That's fine then. Stick with what we have.
If everybody's fine. I don't need to make any motion at this point, but I do have, I think others wish to maybe say something about the
Okay,
policy as it's presented, and I do have some. So anybody else?
Okay.
First, I'll wait.
anyone else have any suggestions, changes they would speak to?
Mr. Chair, I have editorial.
Trustee X.
Yes,
Yes.
I have editorial type of changes. In paragraph B, standing committee, first sentence, it says board upon appropriate action. Actually, what's appropriate? Actually, it's the board upon action. I would suggest that we delete the word appropriate, that the board upon action by the board as a body. And then another similar type of thing, it says may, in that same sentence, may formally establish. Well, what do we mean by formally? May establish. I would recommend that we not have the word formally, so that it would read, the board upon action by the board as a body may establish standing committees. Another area that I see in...
Any comment on that one?
As I say, these are
Okay.
kind of nitpicky things, but
They're important.
I appreciate it.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Then under B1, Facilities and Finance Committee, second line, I'm not sure what that says. Financial position is such it meets. So there's something missing there. What?
The word that? Such that it meets.
Okay. And then the last comment I have is on the second page where it says committee, or the finance, let's see, the finance, at a minimum, 2 members of the board shall be formally appointed to serve on the committee, although the meeting may be open. I think the meeting is open to all members.
Yes.
So those are the only nitpicking comments that I had. The meetings are, not is, are.
Any other? Those acceptable changes will be made then. And this will move forward into the process for review by appropriate parties. Butch was unable to make it this evening, since it was a nice drive over. Do you have any comments or a report you would like to share with us? And it's Carol, correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a daughter, Carol, and a granddaughter, Coral, and I always get those messed up. They have nothing to do with your last name, except, again, it's the C and the R's and the O's in there. So I wanted to make sure I did not mess that up.
No, you got it perfect. I do have a few things for the chair and for the board members. Just kind of updated what's going on with SGA and different things around campus. We've had 2 resource fairs just down in the student lounge. We were able to get people to know more about financial aid and different clubs around campus. Trying to get people to sign up for SGA and intramurals and things like that. And they were pretty successful anyways, at least from what I've heard from the intramural people. And we got a few people to apply for SGA and things like that too. We also started this week. SGA is going to be part of the first students to be trained to be on hiring committees for the school. Since there's a few positions that are opening up, and we feel as SGA, as a group, that it's important to hear students' voices, the student voice and individuals that are being hired, and to be a part of those committees, and for the community to be a part of those committees as well, because we're around those people the most and they're influencing our education. So we feel like we should have a voice there. And so we should be finished with our training on Thursday. And we would like for the training to be done again and opened for other students, not just SGA members, but for other individuals that would like to take the class as well, so that they can possibly be chosen to be on these committees as well. So that's one big thing we're doing. Kind of a smaller thing we're doing, for the last couple basketball games, we have a little competition going on with the students. We're seeing who can come up with the most creative sign or chant, or just who can show the most school spirit in the most creative way. We're hoping to get it on the news, hopefully, and give a few rewards. And we'd love it if you guys would like, if the board would like to attend as well, to see some of the school spirit that we're trying to get involved in, some of the athletics and the different programs that are around the campus, get people to participate. And let's see, I think that we're also working on the SOAR banquet that's coming up here at the end of the year. We're working on getting that together and planning all that as well. And last I heard that we have made a few plans as well for graduation coming up, which is kind of a big part. I know we have a speaker. I can't remember his name right now, but we do have a speaker nailed down. I know President Schaefer knows who it is. Who is it by chance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Keenan. And I've been holding that back somewhat as good news, but certainly it's not a secret. We've asked CJ Box to be our commencement speaker, and he has agreed. So it should be he'll be a nice addition to the ceremonies.
So, thank you, President. And just one last thing, going back to the training for hiring committees and things like that. As we've been going through the training, I personally came up with this question. I don't know if anybody else had any questions about it as well. I was just curious how, like the hiring, they talked about making pools for candidates and things like that. And I was curious what kind of requirements, or if there's any kind of procedure to hiring individuals in-house to move them up or promote them or things like that, or if we, instead of skipping in-house, we just go straight to public and try and bring people from outside in, or just kind of what the thoughts on are of that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Carroll, that's actually a good question, one that I've received before. We have a couple of mechanisms for our searches, as you may recall from some of the conversations around the policy and procedure there, where we actually can do, I think, 2 types of searches, where we do a limited search only to internal candidates, if we want to actually search within the internal candidates. And then we can also do the fully open searches, which would be open to both internal and external candidates. So we do have those mechanisms, and there are times where we know that there are individuals there's a sufficient pool of individuals interested and qualified internally that allow us to do an internal search or those open search. There has been conversation and continues to be conversation about whether or not we would implement into our search processes some type of preferential process for existing employees. And there's been some wonderful debate on the pros and cons of actually doing that. So preference points for employees who currently work here. There's nothing specific to that in the procedure as it exists now, but I know that's been an ongoing conversation.
Thanks, President. I guess, Mr. Chair and members of the board, that's the end of my report. If you have any questions or anything like that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes.
question. Keenan, when you talked about the fairs that you have put on and there was an opportunity for kids to sign up for, I should say kids, students, to sign up for intramurals and stuff like that. Would that be a good spot to talk about involvement in music programs?
Yes, I believe we actually have another club fair, I think, coming up on the 28th, I believe, which would be,
February?
yeah, I believe so. I think it's either 28th, 27th, something around, it's in that area. I believe that's President Schaefer.
I think that's fair.
So, Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes,
follow up?
continue.
So based on what Joe just said, so do you have a music club and an art club?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Trustee Little, I know we have a theater club, and then I wish Vice President Hay were here because she could walk me through the different classifications, but there is a theater club. There are actually a couple of groups associated with music. I am not sure on art specifically.
So I can ask Judy. Judy?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, I can actually get you that information
Okay.
specifically.
So Keenan, the next one coming up is February 28th.
I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's either the 28th or 27th. It's that
Okay,
week.
it's that week.
Mhm.
So who, if I did want it, and I'll talk to Dr. Schaefer about it, but if I did want to coordinate something about music participation in that club fair, who do I work through?
I think Judy does a lot of that, but
Okay,
I'm sure our advisor, Danielle, would help as well.
okay. Or do you have, because I'm thinking February 28th is coming up pretty fast. So do you have them once a month or how often do you have those fairs?
We usually have the fairs at the beginning of semester, usually.
Okay. So after this one, the next one may be in the fall?
Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Schaefer, I think what I'll do is perhaps get with you and Vice President Hay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, we can get you connected to the different levels and figure out when those would be and who to work with specifically, certainly.
And perhaps the most appropriate one to be involved in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Keenan.
Any other questions? Keenan, I had one for you when you were talking about the games and participation and support for that. Do you have specific things at certain games, or is this at all the games? And we're talking basketball, and let's see, what else is going on? We've got the
I think right now.
rodeo.
Yeah. Right now it's just basketball. We just started this with basketball. The first game's be February 18th. I think it's the second to last home game, I believe. So we're trying to start something new, I guess. Get more students involved to participate.
Okay. I understand there is a game tonight, right?
There is.
And I don't know what the score is. Do you?
That's why Judy left, I think, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a question and then a follow-up comment for him. So I appreciate that Keenan brought up the fact that students are going through our search committee training at this point. I guess I'd have a question. How's that experience been? How have the students responded to that training?
It's been good. They put us in. She gives us questions about different circumstances that might come up during a hiring committee or different kind of experiences that we'd go through. And I think most of the students have enjoyed it, and it's been a learning experience. So.
Great. Great. And this, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so my follow-up comment is we have a handful of searches that are going on. The Vice President of Administration and Finance position is posted, and you will have a trustee representative on that, Trustee Merrill, who will also be going through a training. I don't know where we're at in that right now, but I know we're working to do that. And then we have the athletic director position is out and advertised, and there has been interest in both trustees and foundation board members to be on that search committee, and they will also have to go through a search committee training as well. So I know that the Human Resources has been trying to put on expedited and in some ways tailored search committee trainings for specific populations. I've been excited to hear about the students going through that, and some of the trustees will have the opportunity to go through one of those and hopefully report on the usefulness and how that helps them in the process.
In fact, I was very concerned that we as trustees really try to avail ourselves as soon as we can for the training. That I think we all ought to take a look at going through that training. One, we would know what the training entails. And secondly, that gives us a pool where there's several of us who I know we have schedule conflicts and stuff, and I think we need more than a couple of people who are prepared to be on that screening committee. So I would urge my fellow trustees, including myself, to avail themselves of that training as soon as we can.
Mr. Chair, is this available now? Is it online? Is it a class? How does it go?
Trustee Merrill?
Mr. Chair, I have been in contact with Ms. Root, I believe her name is, and she said that the training is not quite online yet, and I had suggested that Don showed interest, but I really agree that we should all take the training, and whether it's online, and she said it would take about a half hour online, or if there's going to be another class and we are available, I'm more than willing to come out and take it here on the campus as well. But I'm thinking that this isn't going to be a one-time thing. I think if we're going to continue to do this kind of evaluation or choosing of employees, we're probably going to need some extra classes or refresher classes or whatever.
So it would be interesting to go to the student. Who's running yours? Is it
It's
Mrs.
Tara.
Root?
Tara's right.
Tara Root?
Yep.
The other Tara. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Trustee Barker.
Been provided with an update on our Eagles, and they won 85-76.
Yippee.
Yay!
85 to what?
75-76.
These are very exciting games.
I knew that was a game I wanted to go to. I almost canceled the board meeting, but you wanted to be here. Trustee Barker.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to, just a quick comment to Keenan, and I as a former college athlete, I very much appreciate the efforts that you guys are putting forth, and it lends to the quality of life of the students and for the athletes, the student athletes that we have on campus. So hearing things like that really, I love to hear those things. So.
Thank you. I appreciate your report, and I'm sure the other trustees also do. You really, as you can see, you gave us some additional food for thought and information that we needed. So look forward to your reports in the future, and thanks again. I appreciate that. Thank you. With that being said, we are down to new business. And one item I wanted to just quickly share with you in a new business was items for the pantry. We need to provide some things for the pantry. I think in the past we had been into some drinkables, but maybe Jerry Griego would be willing to share suggestions for us as to what we as the board might provide in terms of helping the pantry.
I sent out a distribution list campus-wide. We're running out of things like Pop-Tarts and individual granola bars. So you can buy a box of 12, for example, and then we break them apart and students can take a couple at a time. So fruit snacks, anything, because they like to have things in the evenings, especially the dorm students, to snack on or while they're studying. Like mac and cheese, yes. So those kinds of things would be awesome. And I did want to tell you too, we served 59 students in the first 2 weeks of school. So the word is getting out. They're coming. They're even bringing their bags so we don't have to keep giving out plastic bags. So because they get one extra item if they bring their own bag. So so we're trying to work it all together, but we distributed 23 big baskets of stuff with the holidays to get people so they had plenty to eat over the break. So it's going well.
And it would be fine for us if we left things around the president's office. He wouldn't eat too much of it, and we could.
Pop-Tarts, I do enjoy.
All right, we have our walking orders on that. Trustee Merrill.
Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if some folks can't get to the store, if they just want to donate some money, and then if someone could purchase the items. Is that possible?
That would be awesome because we have a freezer and some of the students have asked, when are you going to put meat in the freezer? So we could send someone shopping for hamburger and stuff like that.
Very good suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, where do we take items?
We can drop it off in the president's office, or we could also take it down to the business building.
Yeah, it's in the bottom floor of the business building. B108 is where the actual pantry is. The hours are fairly limited right now. So if my door's open, you can leave it with me and I'll put it in there.
And your door?
Oh, yeah, really, if people leave the stuff alone, I have stuff outside my door oftentimes. And we're working on getting a work study so we can expand the hours of operation.
Your office number?
B118.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would highly encourage you to, not that Vicky or I wouldn't walk things down there, but I'd highly encourage you to walk down there and take a look at the pantry and what they've done. I mean, Jerry's done fabulous work that's impacting a lot of students. So it'd be nice to have you just walk down there and see what they've set up.
The Honorable Vicky.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a list that I'd be happy to email.
Oh, that'd be great, Vicki.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I really have an ignorant question. How does this pantry work? I've heard something about a pantry, but I don't know how it works.
I'm just wondering if we can do that in a short, or whether there'd be a longer discussion and talk about the need and some other things with it and do it at a dinner meeting, or do you feel you could do that in a few seconds? And I'll.
Can I do it in a few seconds? Absolutely, I can talk faster. Basically, we just ask that the students have a student ID. We record their number. We don't record their name. We ask them if they're a full or part-time student. Sometimes we want to know if they are residents in the dorm. And then we give them the opportunity to shop for 5 things per week. But for example, Pop-Tarts, they can have 2 Pop-Tarts and it only counts as 1 item. So we have them kind of listed out like that. Toilet paper is a hot commodity, especially for dorm students, it seems. So they get 2 rolls of toilet paper for 1 item, that kind of thing. Peanut butter is really popular. So they only get 1 jar of peanut butter per month because that's an expensive item. We also have school supplies. We have personal hygiene supplies, razors, shampoo, soap, laundry detergent, feminine hygiene products, baby diapers, baby food. So things that are expensive that are hard for students to afford sometimes. Help them stretch their budget.
Mr. Chair, this is gratis.
Yes, it's free for students that come.
And I think we're fortunate that Jerry, I don't think she'd mind, also serves on Needs Board. Is that correct? And so she has an appreciation for that in the community also. And so I think it's wonderful that it's something that's carried through for the students.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but this started as a service project, and really arose from Jerry's wonderful work with many students in service learning. And so truly grassroots service-oriented project that utilized students and faculty and has taken wings. So it really is an impressive project.
Any other new business for the benefit of the board?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if this is new business, but do we have a meeting of the Academics and Student Services Committee. Do we have one scheduled this month, Vicki?
No, the first one is yes, this month, yes. February 25, March 25, and April 22nd
Thanks.
at 5:30.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to send that information.
And I apologize, I've been neglectful here. Any comments from the public? Then I think we're ready to go enjoy the nice warm air outside. This meeting is, well, I need a motion, don't I?
Move that,
No, I don't.
you can adjourn it.
This meeting is adjourned.
We're paying for enough of it.
Did we learn something? No, you've never needed a motion, but it certainly